Hi, I'm Meagan Nelan with your Schedule Research Committee, and we would like to provide you with a quick update on leg change override or LCO now that it's been implemented. All right, so your pairing display now has two new columns. We have LCO and LCOC, which is short for LCO credit. Your LCO column will display either a P for a 50% override or a D for a 100% override. The applicable trip for pay value will display in the LCOC column. So let's walk through a few examples of how that all looks. In this originally scheduled pairing, the legs in the first duty period were canceled and then they were replaced with an extra section. So day one of the pairing is going to trigger LCO. The change leg isn't an earlier departure, and that blocks in within 3 hours of the originally scheduled block-in for that first day, so this triggers a 50% override. When you compare the original to the flown pairing, the pay may look like it's the same, but you need to keep in mind that overrides in that far right column, those are assessed outside of the pairing pay and have to be added to that value to calculate your grand total. So our recommendation, the best way to validate your pay would be with the payroll report. As you can see, you have a trip total of 13, and then at the bottom of the display, you have a leg change override output of 2.4. That's the total LCO that was triggered for this pairing. So you add the 13 to the 2.4, that comes out to 15.4 total pay for this assignment. Okay, there has also been some confusion circulating on how LCO works for a reserve, which is similar to line holder pay, but there are a few differences, and that's mostly if when you're on reserve, you're assigned a pairing that is shorter in length than the reserve block. So we have one example to demonstrate how LCO applies in that scenario. So, okay, here we have a 3-day reserve who was initially assigned a 2-day pairing, and then they were subsequently reassigned into a third duty period. That newly assigned third duty period becomes the new original for that day, and then subsequent changes would then be due LCO. While days 1 and 2, those get treated with the same LCO application as a line holder as duty period 1 and 2 of a 3-day pairing. So when we compare side by side, the pilot was reassigned into 2 legs on the second duty period, and both blocked in more than 3 hours past the originally scheduled block-in time for that day of 9:30. So both those legs trigger 100% LCO in this scenario, which is where you have the D indicator in that LCO column with the 100% LCO being calculated in that far right column. So just to be clear, had those legs blocked in within 3 hours of the 9:30 original, so they had been blocking it at 12:30 or earlier, they would have been due 50% LCO, but since they both exceeded that 3-hour window, they trigger that 100% override. And then once again, to reiterate, that newly established third duty period, that pays is scheduled, and then any subsequent changes would then be assessed for LCO. One more look at the payroll report to again repeat that the pay for the pairing is in that trip total of 19.5, and then your leg change override of 3.7 is calculated independent of that pairing pay calculation. So you have to add those together. So 3.7 to 19.5 comes out to 23.2, which is your total pay for that reserve assignment. Okay, well, that's our update on LCO. We recognize there are many nuances to pilot pay, so if you do have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us, swappasked@swappa.org. And we have several new overrides being implemented in March, so stay tuned for additional reviews covering those pay details early next month.